Last month education was PPC, and it was kind of the basics of PPC, kind of how to implement it. So we're going to scale that up a little bit here, and then deep dive into 4 different scenarios of usages of PPC, and hopefully that flushes out some questions. I know the best practice committee is deep diving this. So without further comments, let's just go ahead and start this. Jessica, do you want to record this thing?
Yes, I started it. Yep.
All right, sweet. All right, so here we are. We're off and running. So welcome, everyone. It is the third Tuesday of every month, 2 p.m. We do education. So we're, for those of you keeping track and attending monthly, we try to go through each of the standards. Right now we're going through each of the standards, building out a knowledge set so that we post on our YouTube channel so they can be used as reference material. From time to time, we mix it up with different events, different things that are volunteer activities. But the last few months here have been pretty heavy into the weeds of the standards themselves. And hopefully in the coming months, we'll start to preview and tease some future services that will ultimately be revealed at our tech summit. So I'm John Norse. So welcome everybody. I'm joined by Amy. Jessica's here as well. So Amy's going to do some of the fun parts of today, and I get the boring technical stuff. So, but yeah, I work volunteer under Amy's committee, our MMEC, which is Membership Marketing Education. So kind of head up the education side of that. So here we are. Real quick, it's important, and we start most of our meetings and most of our presentations, which is kind of a reaffirmation of what it is we do here. So PromoStandards is obviously a nonprofit. We're a 501c6, but our mission here is to we collaborate to create industry-leading open standards. That's a big deal there, especially in this industry, that enable industry participants to improve the customer experience, reduce transactional friction, and effectively execute their strategy. So that's what we're about. We try to keep reminding ourselves, what we're here for, okay, so I'm going to turn it over here to Amy. Amy, I'll just drive as you go through the slides here. But Amy, let's go.
So today I'm very excited to talk about our hackathon participants and our winners. It was such an amazing time. Our work group did a great job. Again, tremendous support and participation from the community. I think about this opportunity for us to work in teams across all companies and for the betterment of our industry. And I always get excited about it. And so this is one of the ways that we can tangibly show that cooperation and that teamwork, no matter where we are in our day jobs and what our roles take us to do, or, whatever's happening in the industry, we have some fun together advancing the industry. And that's what we're all about at PromoStandards. So I'd like to start and thank our sponsors. So HIT Promotional Products and Sanmar were our sponsors. So some of the participants and the winners, you'll see merchandise from those sponsors, along with t-shirts that you can definitely wear for bragging rights at our Tech Summit coming up. And those are on the way out to you now. And then I'd also like to thank our judges. This year we had Mike from Sanmar, Erwin from Halo, Teresa with fantastic judge from ASI this year. It was really a pleasure having her, along with Bill from outside our community from Brandivate. It was so nice to have their input and their insightful questions during our presentation piece. So thank you. Much appreciated.
And one thing that I was happy to see is, when Amy and I dove into the scoring sheets, they were very consistent. We actually threw out the low score of the judges just to see what would happen, and the exact same results happened. So it was a very, I guess they put a lot of thought and effort into how they scored, and they, obviously thank you to all the judges who did that for us. So.
Yes, it was very tight. So as John said, we tried to look at throw out high and low, see where we end. It's still same result. Great feedback. Love it. So next I'd like to thank our team, our internal team. So the work group for Hack-A-Thon is made up of members, just like most of you on this call, and they work night and day, sometimes into the night, trying to pull all this off and organize. And I just want to say a big shout out to Becky at Sanmar. Amazing job. This wouldn't happen without her, along with Kipper, Bryony, John, of course, and Jessica, from keeping us all straight as our admin and making sure we do all the tasks we say that we're going to do. So thank you. Next, we have the prizes. So as I mentioned, we have t-shirts on the way to everyone, but of course, first, second, and third place will win cash rewards. Well, first and second for cash, you'll have a custom swag kit that will be given to you at the Tech Summit. You also get Conway Cup recognition along with Tech Summit recognition and presentation opportunity. So one of our breakout sessions at the Tech Summit is going to be a deep dive into our top 3 winners of the hackathon to really get into the weeds and the details of how they did what they did. Of course, all their code has been posted up to our PromoStandards repository. So if you have any questions about that, you can take a look there. Anything about that, John, you want to add?
Yeah, so yeah, we'll our plan is to distribute the prizes and all that at the Tech Summit. And if you aren't there, then we'll figure out another way. But logistic wise, it's just easier for us to do that in person. But all the hackathon participants will have their t-shirts drop shipped to their house with their team logo on them, just like we did last year. So that's just all participants get that. So be on the lookout for that. And we got that kind of in the works right now. So that was one of the parts where HIT and Sandmar sponsored that opportunity. So
yes.
Yeah, exciting. So I guess Amy,
the teams. So let's talk a little bit about the teams. So this year we presented, hey, let's do an AI theme. We kind of like, oh no, we'll let teams pick what they want to do. All the teams did AI. So it was amazing to see the creativity from the teams. And I would say the realistic applications of using AI and PromoStandards in our industry. And it was how close we are in some ways, how far away we are in others, but all of the presentations were amazing and helpful and useful to our industry today, and probably leading the way for the future. So thank you, Control-Alt-Delete. Thank you, Cora, PromoBot, Swagify AI, and Promo Paladin. Like I said, it was they were amazing presentations. People were blown away. I was looking at the apps and the websites after the fact thinking, wow, how did they do this in just a week? So it was pretty amazing. So
yeah, great job, Sarah. Okay.
And so here we are.
All right, I'll let you do this fun part, Amy. Okay. Or is this 3, 2, 1? Is that what this is?
3, 2, 1.
Okay. All right, third place.
Our third place winner is Promo Paladins. So team members, Andy, Travis, and Tristan. This was an amazing presentation. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it at the Tech Summit. So congratulations, and did a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing more about that. Okay. I wish I had like some.
I know, some like shock and awe, like some flair. Get some like hand clappers or some promo. Yeah. I'm gonna run down here into the sample room, get all sorts of good swag to kind of make noisemakers.
I could like run around my desk real quick if that'll help.
Do some laps for sure.
Okay, so second place, Swagify AI. Team members, Alessandro, Ariel, Armando, and Joseph. Also amazing job. This was, I loved your website link, and so did our judges. So fabulous presentation.
Yes. All right. So
first place.
All right.
So our team members, Chris, Jason, Kevin, and Yufeng, amazing job. Like I said, this was so close, but you guys eked out over your competition, and your presentation was amazing. And like I said, we will deep dive into this at the Tech Summit. So you can ask all the questions that you want, and even share, if you do more work on it, you can even share more of your presentation at the Tech Summit. So looking forward to that.
One of the things that we want to deep dive and dig into is that the 1, 2, and 3, first, second, third place teams all tackled AI's interaction with search, AI powered product search to some degree.
All different ways.
All different ways, right? So I think it would be an interesting session to really look at that, of the different approaches and which one. Obviously, the this one won out just from, general content and functionality, but, it would be interesting to dive into that a little bit more from each team and, see if collectively we can come up with, what we thought was a great approach, what could have been improved from the others. But it was just really interesting that the top 3 teams really went down that same rabbit hole of AI and product search. So, I mean, something that's very important in our industry with over 1 million products and many, many millions of more SKUs, to really narrow down and get good product suggestions and product results. So.
Right. Because when you think about it, I mean, we've all gone into places and searched, hey, I need some sort of product for this event at this dollar range. And you get depending what searches you're using in the industry, you get various degrees of accuracy with that, or you still are culling through data. So what these 3 teams showed us with their searches was amazing.
Yep. So congratulations to all those. We will be issuing a press release here shortly. So be on the lookout for some publicity for all the winners, and then we'll go from there. So,
again, congrats. More to come on that. You're going to see a lot in our Slack channel and on, as John said, social media and a press release. So we're excited about that. And thank you again to our sponsors. It's amazing time.
Certainly. Yeah. All right.
So what's up next? We'll talk a little bit about Tech Summit. So we are 50% our anticipated attendance. So in the room blocks going fast. So if you have not signed up for the Tech Summit and booked your room, please do that soon. We'll have limited opportunity to go over our intended registration. So if you want to make sure you can be there, book your room and book your tickets for your teams. We've got a couple specials out there right now. You can buy 3 and you get your 4th attendee at no charge. Or if you have more than 10 members coming, which we have a few companies that are doing that already, we can talk about a special pricing for you too. So it's a good opportunity to bring your team, to talk about, learn what's going on in the industry, learn about promo standards, and then also do your own team building at the event too. It's a great opportunity for that. Some of the content that we're sliding into this year, we took everyone's feedback. 2 of our confirmed keynote speakers are here on the screen now. Andrew Larson of Jobcase and also Stephen Reynolds of Cybersecurity Legal Trends. And we're working on a 3rd keynote speaker. And then in between the keynotes, we're going to have breakout sessions for your business path, marketing, your go-to-market type activities, along with your developer activities. So you're going to have your choice of which path to take, or you can mix and mingle. And one afternoon, we're also doing roundtables where we'll have our, industry hot topics that you can set with your peers and discuss, along with supplier and service provider implementation tables. So if you want to deep dive into one supplier or one service provider, you can sit there and ask all the questions that you want in that afternoon. Along with our usual kickoff event, happy hour, probably surprise video from John and Dave.
You never know.
Along with
we'll see what ChatGPT can do with lyrics this year. So she'll just have to write them all.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, back to what Amy was saying, one of the important things is to have these different tracks at the Tech Summit, to where there will be a very, very heavy promo standards track and along with that, a lot of development techniques around promo standards, but just in general, good dev practices. But we also want to make sure that we have enough good business content for, somebody who might not be as, in tune every day with promo standards. Stephen Reynolds, he's actually, he's one of the largest law firms in America. He's a partner there that deals with cybersecurity issues. I've talked to him multiple times. Eric's talked to him in the past. He's actually worked with promo standards through the early days, but he's very knowledgeable in this arena. Awesome speaker. And then Andrew Larson, I had the benefit of interviewing him last year before we had to move the dates. So really pumped for these 2 keynotes. We'll be on the lookout for another one, and then we'll have a pretty good host of industry speakers. I'm trying to mix it up this year, get as much breadth of range of speakers as possible. So yeah. So that's that.
Anything that you'd be looking for, plus our usual networking and dine arounds that everyone enjoys, and all on beautiful St. Pete. So it's going to be a good time to learn, collaborate, and to network, and to start the year off right.
All right. Here we go. All right, Amy. Thank you for all that. Unless you want to stick around and deep dive PPC with me.
I'll stick around, but I'll let you do it this.
Yeah. All right. So last month we realized we hadn't really gone through PPC before from a technical standpoint or more of an implementation standpoint. So we did that, and then there were some good questions in the Q&A. So we actually pivoted from what we were going to do this month, which was, I don't know what it was, and wanted to circle back on some of those topics that came up in PPC. So this is one of the reasons we encourage Q&A, and we encourage chatting during these sessions, is that helps us gauge what the interest is and where the confusion or questions might be, and then we can tailor our education topics towards them. So, last month was getting down with PPC. Well, this one, it's really getting down with PPC 2.0 and looking at some of the use cases, because I want to break down, there is some interesting ways of how PPC is being implemented, and I'll walk through that just so we all know what to expect and really what's capable of. So I really want to look at 4 different scenarios today. These are things that come up from time to time, especially when you're selling. What I did last month was pretty easy, right? It's a single SKU, has, call it 4 color options that you can choose from: red, blue, black, green, and then that's easy. Part groups are really easy. But what happens when we have multiple parts in there? What happens when you have optional choices, some are required choices? We'll look at the X-Men, Y-Men use cases a little bit, and then there is one of the larger debates in PromoStandards is the price display strategies, the additive model versus kind of the all-inclusive model. I'll walk through that and just kind of show the pros and cons, and I think it's just important to get out there. What we will be looking for, and I alluded to this earlier, is Jay and his best practices committee are actively going through this standard, and really once they publish a document for intended uses for fields, for practices within the standards, that's really what PromoStandards is going to lean on. So it's a pretty active committee. It's a heavy lift going standard by standard and writing best practices for them all, but it's actually going pretty well so far. And just for while we're going through it, if you go on, once you log into PromoStandards.org under your username, your email, that now activates a whole set of best practices. I think all that's being stored in a Confluence section for PromoStandards. So, all right, let's go real quick. I want to circle back to what we did last week. Just basic structure. We'll spend 30 seconds on this and then really get into it. So, for those of you who are kind of new-ish to PPC, there's and within the main standard, there's 5 methods. I would say the 4 of them: get charges, get FOB points, get locations, and get colors, are kind of what we typically call as helper functions, where the real meat and potatoes of PPC is in that get config method. So really everything we're going to be focusing on today comes out of that get config method. And just, this was all covered last month. So if you want to, it's actually posted to YouTube if you want to dig into that. So essentially there's, the structure of the response to PPC is over on one side, you get your parts and your prices, and then over on the other side, you have your locations, decorations, charges, and prices. Though your charge prices and your location IDs really are what link the 2 sides together. So this works, and right now I want to dive into the concept of parts. So I'm going to show some XML examples and some real life examples here, so just bear with me. But really, part groups, right? This is the unique factor of PPC that allows, if I have a water bottle or if I have a tumbler, I can group these things and then group the additional pieces in there. So we're really going to focus on within the part array, what the fields are that really matter, that drives configuration. True configuration, which is where you're building parts. You can have one-to-many parts in your part array, and they can all be grouped together where you have to literally go down this. We're building out a decision tree for what has to happen in order to build a part. So this is the part of the spec, so just so everybody knows where we're at. So let's look at this example. So I'm going to use HIT for all of our data examples today, just because it was easy for me to get the data and talk to our team about what works best and how we see it used in the wild. So let's take this water bottle, aluminum Tundra bike bottle here for as an example. So this is a bottle that comes in a whole host of colors, right? And that's the simple part of PPC, right? One bottle, bunch of product colors. But we have decided to make this a little more tricky. And on this bottle, there is an optional second part group, this carabiner, which comes in multiple colors. Right, so if you have this water bottle and you want to add a carabiner, well, we need to be able to convey that in PPC, and fortunately here we do that. So I want to walk through what that looks like. So essentially there's a bottle in a bunch of colors and a carabiner in a bunch of colors that is optional, and how is that going to look when our PPC data is kicked out? So now let's go through this here. So sorry, I'm just want to 2 seconds. Okay, so basically what we have here, and I'm gonna dive into the table. I was just looking ahead there. So let's just focus on this black water bottle here, the black version of it. So this is the basically what you see in all of the PPC response, right? There's within the part array, there's a part which is the 5701 BLK. We have pricing information, all the tiered pricing structure, and then bear with me here. We have these part groups, next part groups, and if it's required or not. So I'm going to explain all this in 2 seconds. I just want to lay out what we're dealing with here. And then also in our part in PPC, we get this another part that comes back, which is this 23323, also comes in BLK, and this is in there. So I only show that because we're going to bounce back and forth between these two. So if you take all the options and put them into a table, because this is essentially what we're doing, right? So we have 2 different parts here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my picture out of the way here. So if you take all the main fields and the part groups from PPC and you look at this, so what do we really have going on? So we have our water bottle here, which comes in 3 colors, just in my example here. So we have black, silver, and white. And then we have this carabiner, which comes in a bazillion colors, 6 different colors that you can do. So how does this work? Well, back here, if you notice in our water bottle example, the part group here is number 1, next part group is 2, and this part group is required. So we look at our table. So basically, in a decision tree, you have to pick a water bottle, right? That is required. You have to, because the part group's required, you need to pick black, silver, or white, right? Now, if you do that, there's this next part group, which is 2, which tells you that if you look over here in this column, part group required, there is a optional part group 2 that you can choose. Now, logically walking through this, we have our part group, which 1 is with the bottle, and the part group 2 is the carabiner. So, it's pretty simple, but makes sense. It's going to get a little more complicated as we go forward here. So if we choose our part price, let's say we're going to get a black water bottle with a green carabiner. So our part price 1, and obviously there was the whole tiered pricing here that I just condensed and took the price that I wanted. $4.50 for the black water bottle. And then we come through, I'm going to pick a green carabiner, which also means I need to add an additional 25 cents because that's what the optional part is. So pretty straightforward, right? It's not rocket science. Notice how the next part group for my last part group number 2 is empty, because they're really that's what tells you that you're done. Once you've traversed through part group, next part group, and gone down the decision tree and determine if you have to make this decision or not, that's what we do. So pretty straightforward. It just helps sometimes to look at these things and the pictures, right? So if you actually pull the XML, this is what you get, right? You have the part group required, and this one's a little more simple. There's not a lot of tiered pricing going on. It's essentially you got to get 36 of them. And if you do, it's 25 cents. And then the most important thing, though, is how that next part group is conveyed Steve was just pointing out that Amy modified my PowerPoint and then it threw her Facilis group internal use only on there. So don't worry about that, everybody. We can blame Amy for that. Okay. Next, let's get a little more complicated. I asked our team here for what's one of the more messed up, complicated products that we have. So let's look at this one. So what do we have here? Here we have a bear. So we have a plush bear, cute bear here, 6-inch big paw. So this big paw bear comes in 2 colors, right? You get brown or white. But now there's this crazy thing, a required selection, which is the pieces that we actually print. You can either put a shirt on your bear, a hoodie, or a bandana, but you have to select one. And then there's different pricing decisions that go along with this. So, there's a lot of options. So if you look at the parts that come back in this PPC request for the 1260, there's like 30 parts that come back in this. Essentially, what those parts are is the parts are the bears and then all the shirts, the hoodies, and the bandanas. And we're going to show how that works. So this is an example of where you have to make 2 selections, right? So if you look back here, there's no just getting a brown bear without a shirt, right? It's not allowed even in the bear community, no nudity in the bears. So what do we do here? So for part group 1 in our example here is you got to pick a bear, right? So come through, pick a white or brown bear. I guess we can call them polar bears or grizzlies. Pick part group 1. Now here's the difference here is part group is required, right? So you have to make a choice, but the next part group is number 2 is also required. Now, here's where, and this was interesting. I had never seen this before, and actually I'm glad I dove into this product. This is a very unique, clever way to use PPC. So instead of making 3 groups saying where you can pick bandana, hoodie, or shirt, what we do is we group all of these selections because you have to choose one. And just because those they don't all have the same part, right? There's multiple different parts. So you have to choose from this part group. You have to either pick a bandana, a hoodie, or a shirt. So what we did is we threw 3 different parts with 3 different prices and all the color configurations into one group. And I would actually, I would say it's the right way to do it. I was saying breaking them up into optional part groups probably would be confusing to the end user. But this is a great example where you have a bunch of stuff and you have to pick one. And what you pick determines price. So what we've done here is we don't actually associate a price. We leave price empty for the first part selection. And that's okay. That's allowed by the standard. So essentially here, if you're looking at your additive model from the last example where I added 450 and I think 25 cents or 39 cents, you added those together. In theory, you can do the same thing here. You can add 0 to your selection. But what we're going to do is we'll pick a brown bear and then we'll come down here and put a royal blue hoodie on it. Then we choose $7.49 as our price. So let's see what's next. So if you kind of look at what does the XML look like, so here's our brown bear XML, very standard, right? Part group 1, next part group 2, it is required. There's our bear for our part description. It's a ratio of 1. What's the ratio for? For example, if the ratio was something other than 1, let's say we offered for $6.79 2 bandanas with every bear, that's what the ratio would be. Kind of lets you know, is it a 1-to-1 or a 1 to more than 1 situation? So this is the bear selection. And then if you look down through here, kind of what you get for the shirts, hoodies, bandanas, I chose in this example here an orange bandana, and this is kind of, part group. So it's overly simplified, but I think this is a great example. And I think sometimes if you look at your data in this constraint, and yes, there's the tree format that PPC supports, but if you break it out into a table and really see what the options are, it allows you to know what's required, what's the next group, what choices you have to make, and how the pricing works. So, yeah, so that's that. Okay, enough bears, enough bottles. We're going to briefly talk X-Men and Y-Men. So what's the purpose of this, right? So where you see it, and I should have done a embroidery example, but I didn't. charge prices have this whole built out. So within the charge price field, so where does this live? Back here. This is what lives under on the right side of our tree here. We have locations, decoration, charges, and charges have properties, which are prices. And that loads into this right here, into this charge price array. So what is this really allowed for? And there's one glaring gap in this, which we're going to discuss, but it's going to come up here in a second. But basically, this is where suppliers or service providers convey what all of this cost. And the X-Men, Y-Men, just think about it, you have your X-axis that's running horizontal and your Y going up and down. This allows you to build out essentially a grid, right? So let's say you have a tiered grid, like the industry has a lot of pricing grids. What we find in this industry that obviously as you buy more, prices tend to go down, and we sometimes overcomplicate things by gridding charges. Embroidery is a classic example. You see this with a lot of 3 and 4 color run charges, where the more that you order, the less that it gets. So this X-Men, Y-Men unit of measure allows us to literally define that grid. I'm going to show an example here, I think, in a second. So just, walking through these fields here. X-Men, X unit of measure. So it's, for every each, I would say the majority of these are eaches. Sometimes you see dozens. I rarely see some of these other values used, but I would say the standard use case here is eaches. Now where you see, so it's basically for every unit quantity you go up. So call it 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 50. Your X-Men would be 1, 20, and then 40. And then obviously in different arrays. Y-Men, so that's documentation. It's pretty much the price that goes along with the quantity that you've just allocated from above. Now, the Y unit of measure are enumerated, but they're a little different, right? You can either have colors, inches. There's some people who print according to square inches or the print size. So some people say up to 20 square inches is X price versus that. So this allows you to do that. Other stitches. The big uses here are colors and stitches, right? So for for every one 100 you order, your Y unit of measure is, and you can build out an array of colors. So think about the top is quantity, the side is colors as you go down. Same thing with stitches, right? A lot of people are like the first 1 to 7,000 is included. Anything over that is additional. So price, everything else pretty much comes along. So what I have here, so this is what it normally looks like. So this is a setup charge, a silkscreen setup charge. And this is the most common use case for X-Men, Y-Men. So when you only have one, right, the setup charge is only one, right, you got to pay it. It's a 1 by 1 grid, right? So one for every each setup you have, in every one color that you traverse, you have this price of $40 net on a G, and then there's a repeat setup. So pretty standard. And I would say the majority of use cases in the industry are this 1 by 1 grid. So just if you're good at this, that's fine. But that's, no, not a problem. So now what we have is at HIT here, we have this thing called an extra color charge, right? And it's pretty standard throughout the industry, but this is a run charge. Now, one thing, and I know if Robert's on here, he's probably cringing. I'm actually going to go talk to Raj about this. So what we do, because the first color is included, we just assume that that it's notice how our X-Men, Y-Men starts at the position 1, 2 and not 1, 1, saying that for each, quantity tier, for every one color, it's 30 cents. But we include the first color into the print, which is clever. So the different conventions here, and where Robert at commonsku, what he would like to see is 2 elements in this array where it was 1 by 1 at $0 at a price of 0, and then the 1 by 2 is a price of 30 cents that allows him to traverse. This, you make the assumption that, but the data conveys this accurately, right? Just because there's not a 1-1 element in the array does not, shouldn't throw you off. It just says, hey, this extra color charge only applies at the position 1-2, meaning that 1-1 is free. I guess you have to infer that. And then 1-2, and for every additional, extra color charge, you get this additional 30 cents. So it's not the, end all be all. I would say for every large implementation I've ever done around this, there's always a discussion with the implementer, right? Just make sure that you understand how they're using it. Robert is probably one of the more solid use cases for implementers of this. And what the issue is with the charge, and you're going to see in a second why this comes up, is that there's nowhere in, and we have to fix. The first thing we fix in PPC 2.0 is that we do not have a flag or a field that says that this charge is required. For example, setup charge here, it's just implied that, hey, you need to do this. You get when you come through and you get a silk screen, you have to add a setup charge, right? Well, there's no, if you look back in the product groupings, we implicitly said part group required, right? We don't have a charge required field in here. You could argue that there's some inference of it with if you look in here, if you spelled out that the 1-1 XY grid is 0 and then the 1-2 is 30, you could try to infer what that means. But we ultimately, figuring out what is required and what isn't is the tricky part of PPC. And we're going to plug that gap here pretty soon. But all right, let's keep going here. This is my favorite debate of all times in PPC. The concept of there are two ways, and I would argue now with my new position here that the additive model has its benefits. And I'm going to show you. So what I want to do is I want to show you there's two models out there where one's the base price all in, the price that you see in the part array is the printed, assuming that it includes the first color printed or just the base price, right? If you're blank and you're selling apparel, none of this matters to you, and you don't have the same problems the rest of us do. But for the rest of us, we have to convey, how to build prices as you go through. So we have this 40-ounce mug, all the rage here, super popular. You should get one if you don't have one. So this thing has pricing tiers, right? It's a 40-ounce, 50, 500, 35. And if you order 500 of them, the price on our display on the website is $17.99 on a C. If you look, this grid over here on the right conveys that. Now, in Hitland, because we don't offer this as a blank, that we serve up the all-in base price with everything included, right? Because there is not an option. There's no additional price to do that. Now I'm going to show you the exact opposite here in a second. So this is a standard example where it's a fully loaded charge. Now let's take a different example here. Non-woven eco tote. So this is a very popular product in the industry, very popular product here. So what is this? This is your standard non-woven tote. Notice I'm going to show you the website version, and then I'll show you the PPC version. We have a blank price, and then we have a silkscreen price. Now, let's just stick with me here. So if you look here in our PPC price, what we do is we return, because there is a required silkscreen charge of 40 cents, we return the 79, and we treat this as an additive model, where you take your base price and then you add charges onto it. So this kind of really supports that as you traverse through the decision tree of adding bandanas, carabiners, and all of that, you just keep adding prices onto your base price. So for this example here in our non-woven economy tote bag, you can do your 79 cents. And then we have this required silkscreen charge of 40 cents. And now you have built out your, and if you look from 1 to 2,500, we have a 40-cent charge. Well, magically 40 cents plus 79 cents is the $1.19. So what does this mean? It means that you need to be on the lookout when you are implementing of what pricing model that suppliers or service providers are adopting. I would say both are being used in the wild. Both have their applications. Both are very relevant. So I would just say this is where conversations need to happen, right? I think, when you're going through, it's, what, we talked about it last month. What are the FOB locations you support? What are your, languages, currencies? What are, how do you handle additive pricing models? And then, just how do you support how do you convey required charges, or, how do you try to convey required charges in the pricing structure? Okay. So I know it's kind of oversimplifying complicated things, but if you want, I can, especially if you're a customer of ours, and I'm going to get to Q&A here in a second. I can provide, somebody here from the team can provide you some XML examples of how this works in the wild. Obviously you can see what's on the screen. Real quick, and let's see what this question is before I go. So Jamie asked a question. What you showed was the blank price. Doesn't that model start with a decorated price? So I would argue that if you pull, I'd have to pull the actual how the spec is the definition, and Eric quotes this a lot, Eric Schoenberger. They're in the spec, it specifically calls out an additive model in the description. So which is where the confusion lies. This is where the best practices committee is going to have to clean this up. Doesn't it start with a decorated price? I would say maybe, question mark. That's not always as clear as it should be. And this is why we have this slide right here. So we have, and I plugged them earlier, Jay runs a best practices committee. They're actually, I went through the draft spec for them. They're tackling this standard as right now as we speak. They're going through, and they're going to take an official PromoStandards stance on the best practices to do everything for PPC, which is very vastly needed. And then what we'll start doing is, trying to make sure that we get everybody into compliance. They do have a draft in place. If you want to chime in on this, please, Jason's pretty active in Slack. Reach out to him in Slack. Reach out to anybody that you know is on that committee. This is the time where we really want feedback for how these things are used. A lot of you distributors and consumers of this data see this stuff in the wild. I think some of us really only have limited exposure to our own data and other data we've been exposed to. So it gets hairy. I would say the beauty of PPC, the beauty and the downside of PPC is the same thing, is its flexibility. It allows that additive pricing model, but also, doesn't really state that you have to do it one way or the other. But look, in the initial days of PromoStandards, we never wanted to tell anybody how to run their business, how to do their pricing. We really want nothing to do with anything, in terms of how to structure pricing, because that's you enter some dicey waters there, and we don't really want to touch those. So its flexibility is also its biggest drawback of the complexities, but standard works. There's a lot of it out there in the wild. So some real quick takeaways. And like I said, a lot of these just have discussions before you just blindly consume a PPC standard endpoint. So PPC as we saw last month can be simple. PPC as we saw this month can be difficult. Use a product groupings to convey selections with complex products, right? This is the beauty of PPC, the configuration aspects of it. Watch for multiple pricing strategies, starts with discussion with a supplier, and definitely use the X and Y minimums to convey table and tiered pricing data. Lastly, we can't end any education session ever anymore without a big plug for mine and Amy's favorite thing in the world, Tech Summit. like I said, we're shooting for 200 people this thing, and then we're on track to do it. One thing that if you are interested, and I know there's pretty tech heavy crew on here, our sponsorship opportunities are, I don't want to say surprisingly filling up fast, but they are starting to disappear pretty quick. I think we just had a few more today that got locked in. So if you're a service supplier, distributor, if you're a member company and you're interested in sponsoring, you can sponsor anywhere from events to meals to breaks. Really, this is a way just to help, get your name out there as a PromoStandards supporter, and then, help us on the planning side, execute some cool things. Amy's got a champagne taste on a beer budget. So that's what the sponsorship things come in. But it's gonna be awesome. I think, there's one who left this morning, the 40-degree cold, rainy Buffalo and sunny Tampa right now. This place is pretty awesome weather in February. So if you're looking to, get away, and one thing that didn't intend this at first, but there are groups who are going to plan their dev meetings and gatherings around the Tech Summit. So if you have a large grouping at your company and you want to really plan, just a social gathering in conjunction with the Tech Summit, definitely use this opportunity. We've created a large attendee pricing model for that. Reach out to Amy or Jessica or myself. So if you're interested in making a company event for your tech team, this will be the opportunity to do it. So we have that in place. Just reach out to us and we'll make sure that it's right for you, and we'll go that way. Amy, anything else I missed?
Yeah, I would say with the large group too, we can help as far as pointing in the right direction of local things to do, local spaces, local restaurants. If you're looking for something, we can help. If you're coming to the event and want to have something extra separate, we can help direct you in that area to whatever you need. If you want to come in early or stay a day late, we can help figure that out and run logistics for you if you'd like. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody, this concludes our education session today. We're not sure what next month is going to be. It could be a preview, depending on what the Standards Committee has an in-person meeting next week. So they have a tall work order of stuff on their backlog to tackle. So really, we're going to announce next week what the November education session is going to be. But as you know, third Tuesday every month, it's all the same. So
we also
thanks,
have
everybody.
an in-person board meeting.
Yes, we have an in-person board meeting coming up too. So we got a lot brewing here in PromoStandards land. Read your emails, check Slack, always check the general channel. There's gonna be a lot brewing through there. So thank you, everybody. It's been real. Good times. Thanks.